And we're back. More My Kinsman, Major Molineux. So Robin gets to town and he has to cross. So a lot of Hawthorne is just dripping with symbolism. Robin crosses the river and he gets cheated a little bit by the ferryman because, hey, why not cheat the country rube, right? And a lot of symbolism there, crossing into unknown territory, crossing the river. And of course, the story is a nighttime story. So Robin is sort of passing into sort of a maybe a little dark period here of his life, which growing up can be. But it's also a time when things are not clear, okay? So this is a time when things are not clear. Things at nighttime may not seem what they are. He's also tired. He's got a spring in his step here because he's all excited. He's in the big city, but he's walked about 30 miles, right? So he didn't have a horse. He walks, man. People used to just, got to get somewhere, just walk it, man. Just walk it. So he is tired, but he has got a nice spring in his step. And the symbolism I mentioned earlier, he's carrying a cudgel, which is a branch or maybe a thick root, but it's something that's sort of, it's a wood in sort of a natural state. The bark has been removed, maybe it's been stained or something like that, but it hasn't been turned on a lathe. There's nothing fancy about it. And of course, the guy he comes across has that walking stick, which is painted ebony. It's black, it has a gold head. It's in so many ways, the opposite of the cudgel. And you know, Robin, you know, at some point he wants to grab the thin end of the cudgel, and the top part would have like a knob on it, a natural knob, and he wants to, he almost starts whacking people with it. So anyway, we already spoke about the first guy he comes across, who's coughing all the time, and Robin gets a pretty abrupt reception from him, even though he's full of confidence. This guy's like, get out of here, kid. Leave me alone. You know, so not exactly the greeting he was thinking about all day while he was walking 30 miles. And then this great phrase comes up right away. But being a shrewd youth, soon thought himself able to account for the mystery. This is some country representative, was his conclusion, who has never seen the inside of my kinsman's door and lacks the breeding to answer a stranger civilly. Of course, everybody Robin meets knows that Major Molineux is going to get tarred and feathered that night. I'm going to drop a picture in here right now that shows a little bit of tar and feathering. Yeah, that's pretty bad, isn't it? So everybody here knows what's happening that night, and maybe they don't want to be associated with Robin because they don't want to get tarred and feathered themselves. Robin's lucky he didn't get thrown in as well. And you can die from tar and feathering, especially in 1732. You get an infection from scrubbing or peeling off the tar and feathers, and you know, antibiotics, it could kill you. So the first guy he sees rejects him, but Robin thinks, oh, he must be from the country. He must not know. And of course, Robin's the one from the country. So Robin is reading the situation all wrong. I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but he's misperceiving. He's projecting onto everyone he meets what he wants them to be, what he thinks they are, and he's completely misreading the situation. But hey, it happens to all of us. And then we know he enters the tavern where there's a bunch of drunks. We already talked about this. He inquires about the major. The tavern keeper wants him to be a customer, but when he realizes that's not going to work, sort of teases him and says, oh, you look like Ezekiel Mudge. The innkeeper quickly goes from salesman, being a bit of a phony, to strike up business. He goes from being a salesman, which Robin took as reverence for Major Molineux. He didn't see it as someone trying to part him with his money. And then, of course, then the tavern owner sees Robin as an escaped indentured servant and runs him out, and he goes back in, and Robin hears everyone laughing at him. So all part of growing up, making mistakes and getting laughed at. He continues on. The city really tires him out. You know, I don't know about you, but when you're in somewhere that's unfamiliar and your brain is working overtime to make sense of things, it is pretty exhausting. Then he comes upon the prostitute, which he probably doesn't even know prostitutes exist. He lives out on the farm. He's seen a lot of farm animals having sex, maybe his parents as well. Not a lot of privacy in 1732 in a small house. But as far as someone selling themselves, maybe he knew about that from the Bible, but he doesn't recognize the saucy eyes here as a prostitute. And again, she's trying to trick him into becoming a customer. And he's a little turned on, folks. And he almost gets pulled in, and that would have definitely been a night to remember. He would have lost his innocence in a whole other way than knowledge. So anyway, gotta love that. Yeah, she lies. He lies that he's got to get it back to his lodging. So we see him growing up lying as a little part of growing up. He doesn't have any lodgings. The slender-waisted woman in the scarlet petticoat, scarlet, right? Adultery, sex, proved stronger than the athletic country youth. So Robin, you little devil, you. He wouldn't have had the money, and she probably would have tossed him in the street and beat him with the cudgel. Yes. Finally, he makes a stand when he encounters someone. He's had it, right? He's fed up. Halt, honest man, he stopped someone. And answer me a question, he said very resolutely. Tell me this instant, whereabouts is the dwelling of my kinsman, Major Molineux? Now, this is a sort of a country thing. He's direct, using his cudgel. It's not sort of the more subtle, sophisticated city way of going about getting information. Robin is not really tuned into irony yet. He will be by the end of the story, but as a naive, innocent person, irony is sort of, in subtlety, is lost on him. So he just, hey, no, keep your tongue between your teeth, fool, and let me pass. Let me pass, I'll say, or I'll strike you to the earth. Robin says, no, no, neighbor, flourishing his cudgel. No, no, I'm not the fool you take me for, nor do you pass till I have an answer to my question. Whereabouts dwelling of my kinsman, Major Molineux? So Robin's not going to take it. He's getting an answer. The stranger, instead of attempting to force his passage, stepped back into the moonlight, unmuffled his face, and stared full of that of Robin. Watch here an hour, and Major Molineux will pass by. Now, the stranger could have probably decked the kid. He could have said, you know what, we're tar and feathering your cousin, and you know what, we're going to tar and feather you too. Instead, I think he's actually kind of generous here for someone who's just stopped him in the street and threatened violence to get information. He's like, you know, just wait here. He actually sets him up for a growth experience, right? Just wait here. You'll find your cousin. And when the man sort of reveals his face, it's painted half red and half black. It's like he's going to an NFL game. But one side of the face blazed an intense red, while the other was black as midnight. So again, sort of devilish colors going on here. Not quite sure I've ever nailed down the symbolism on that one. Any ideas? I'd love you to email me. But as far as the exact symbolism of the black and red, I've never quite got to the bottom of that. Maybe there isn't any. Sometimes black and red are just black and red. But it does seem like sort of fire and smoke, and you know, it's my favorite color combination, but maybe that's why I'm having trouble understanding it. Then Robin says, he's sort of like, all right, force didn't work. I guess I'll just do what the guy said. I'll wait here. And he peeks in a church. Now remember, Robin's father's a minister. He peeks into an empty church. It's nighttime. And he sees the moonbeams striking the Bible. It's really a beautiful image. One reason I love this story so much is it really takes you back in time. If you ever visited a New England village with the church on the town green, and sometimes these old taverns are still there and operating. It's just great. It's great stuff. And he's very weary, and he sort of slips into a little bit of a dreamlike state, and he starts thinking about back home, right? And you can sort of feel him starting to give up on this whole city adventure. And he's thinking back home, and there's his older brother. Now, traditionally, the oldest brother takes over the family farm, doesn't get off the farm, but the brother's upset, that he didn't get to go to the city. The youngest brother usually becomes a minister, and the middle brother goes off. So Robin has gone off here. And he did meet Major Molineux quite a while ago, and Molineux visited them. And so he's sort of having this hallucination of sorts, sort of envisioning back home. And of course the family's praying outside, and then they all go inside and lock the door, and Robin is locked outside. So he's starting to have some pangs of homesickness here. And this is all normal, and it's all what we go through. Some of you probably still live with your family, and that's great. If you've moved out, if you've ever been away for any extended period of time, you know how it starts to feel, and it's different when you go back there. It's not really home. You're a visitor. And then he has this great question: am I here or there? Cried Robin, starting for all at once, when his thoughts became visible and audible in a dream. The long, wide, solitary street shone before him. And if you haven't had this experience yet, I bet you have had it. Am I here or am I there, right? When you go from middle school to high school, am I there or am I here or there? To college, am I here or there? When you start a different job, when you move to a different place. Your reference point is where you were, but you're in a new place. So it's very interesting, right? Where am I? Where do I belong? This is an identity issue. And then we have the best guy yet. I think I'm going to actually cut this off here. We're a little over 12 minutes. And before I jump into sort of the ending of the story, we'll move on to part 3 of My Kinsman, Major Molineux by Nathaniel Hawthorne.